first of all, share your thoughts on the session you just saw this morning.
Well, I think it's always good and positive to see people from outside of the private sector hotel industry side of it on their perspectives. So to see retail and the Telegraph especially, so I think you can always learn, and to see other people's perspectives on the trends, because we know things are changing every day. And when you're here in such a venerable building like the Telegraph, and the gentleman is talking about apps and onlines and iPads, you know that the world, the travel world especially, changes on a daily basis. So you need to keep up with the trends and to see what the rest of the world is doing as well. So it's also helpful to hear them talk about other parts of the world that may be a little more aggressive, a little further along in social media applications and things like that. So always good to get the perspective.
How does this prepare you for World Travel Market the next 3 or 4 days of business?
Well, I think it just sets the tone to first realize, I think most of us realize that the Caribbean as a whole has been ahead of the game for so many years in so many ways because we have come together as a region. But we also have to realize is that we have a long way to go and that we have to grab the opportunity to really embrace the regional marketing campaign. I know Commissioner Nicholson Doty and I have been singing the same song, that reclaiming our market share as the Caribbean brand and preparing us to bring people back to our part of the world, and then we can compete on where they stay. But let's do a better job of pooling our resources and getting people to think Caribbean first, and then we can decide which destination they go to.
You heard coming from at least 2 of the panelists this morning the word Australia and what it is doing that really has it at least on par with, if not ahead, of the Caribbean. How does that make you feel?
I think it's great. I think because honestly, I have not been as successful a messenger as I had hoped to be. So to hear experts outside of the CHTA, CTO world talk about other parts of the world maybe will help get through to people who are still somewhat skeptical and somewhat doubtful. So for me, the Australia example has just really reinforced what Commissioner Nicholson and Doty and I have been trying to talk about to our fellow Caribbean hoteliers and ministries of tourism. We are not ahead of the curve in a lot of key areas, and it's time now is the time to get there.
What must we do? I know you've been talking, as you said, and reiterated a few times, regional marketing. Okay, so we've said it a lot. What next?
I think what next should be simple. No matter how big or small your destination is, to take a small, tiny piece of your budget and to commit it to a regional effort. And it's understandable, and you've heard me say this, I know. I understand when times are tough, you want to circle the wagons and you become more naturally isolationist and you're concerned about your individual national needs. But we have a rare opportunity now with Caribbean.co.uk, with CaribbeanTravel.com, everybody to take a little small percentage of your budget, pool it, put it together, and market the brand. The Caribbean, the world's largest unowned brand name. Let's take this opportunity now and put some money and effort into marketing the Caribbean brand.
What are you looking forward to for WTM over the next few days?
I think it's all, honestly, it's more about perspective and to see where other people are coming from, because we know that one of the challenges of a 30-plus nation trade association, either private sector or the government sector, is getting any kind of consensus. And so I think these kind of events, more than earth-shattering new innovations, it's more about how we relate to each other and talk to each other and try to bring together the varying perspectives, and so we can come to a better consensus. And as you know, ministers turn over, general managers of hotels turn over, so very often it happens where you've convinced somebody about the worthiness of a regional campaign, and then you get to start all over again and convince their successor. So a lot of it is consensus building, I think.
And tell me, what's the most striking thing about today for you? What are you leaving with?
Well, I think you hit it on the head, is when you hear at a Caribbean function, when people talk about other parts of the world, that's the takeaway for me, is that, hello folks, we think we are, again, doing so many things right, but there are so many things we could do better. So when you hear somebody in a Caribbean room talking about Scandinavia and Australia, it should give you pause and to do some research and look at what, because as you know, we've said it for a long time, we're not competing against each other. We're competing against the rest of the world. And so let's take a few minutes and look at what the rest of the world is doing. So yeah, when you hear somebody talking about Scandinavia and Australia at a Caribbean conference, it should give you pause to think about what the rest of the world is doing.